everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episodes 20 through 22 of Kuroko's Basketball Season 3, and the last episode ended the last two sets I've watched have started out great. It's been like the highest of highs, the cutest of cutes, the shippiest of shippiest, and then it's just slowly devolved into despair. With both sets, and I was like, I could do without this, thank you. I don't need any more despair in my life right now with Kuroko's Basketball, but here we are. So what do we do? But we only have this set of the main series. We have this set, and then we have next week to finish out Season 3, which is insanity. And then we have obviously the specials, the bloopers, the audio dramas, the character songs, and then we have the movie, which I'm really excited about. I know nothing about the movie, want to know nothing about the movie. Please, no spoilers. And so I'm really excited to go into that blind and have no clue what's going to happen. And then we'll have things after that. So, and then we have the manga, which I do want to react to the manga. I've got to figure out when I'm putting that in. So, there's lots of Kuroko's Basketball still yet to go. I'm definitely not ready to be done with this series, and so I'm glad that we're still going to have that to look forward to. I'm really excited about it. But yeah, I have two dogs with me now. I not only have Huckleberry, but now I have Ruby. She's here as well. And so if you hear dogs barking, that's them. I'm caretaking of two divas in this, I'm starting my own generation of miracles with corgis. But we have some comments that we need to get through from the last set because, yeah. It's been a doozy, right? And so I've got some comments from Patreon and a few comments from YouTube that I want to address before we start this set. But oh my gosh. So Arjo pointed out that, yeah, it's really crazy the foreshadowing that Kuroko has been developing these skills and slowly diminishing his shadow this whole time. But the funny thing is, Arjo pointed out Kuroko needed to develop these skills to get this far. If he hadn't, they wouldn't have beat Yosen. They couldn't have beat some of the other schools unless Kuroko had developed the skills. So it's sort of one of those things where they needed those skills to get better and to get to this point, but what was the cost to get to this point? So at some point, Seiren has to do something because I refuse to believe they're just going to miserably lose. That just seems to counter all of the themes that we've built in this series. But maybe the mangaka's going to be super cruel. I don't know. But I also liked Arjo's note about how Chihiro Mayuzami changed his attitude to hide his emotions once he became the sixth man and started to develop that misdirection, right? And then I really liked what Arjo said about all the Rakuzen starters are counterparts to Seiren. You have Izuki and Akashi, who are point guards with the special eyes, right? Then you have Hyuuga and Mabuchi, which we'll talk about Mabuchi more, who are the special shot shooters that you have. Then you have Kuroko and Mayuzumi, who are the Phantom Sixth Men. You have Kagami and Hayama, who are kind of like, they're the shooters, scorers, they have the animal instincts, they're connected that way. And then you have Kyoshi and Nebuya, who are the uncrowned king centers. So it's kind of crazy. I had not thought of it that way, that they're sort of the opposites of each other, that they're the counters to each other. So it's like, okay, then what do we do about that? How do we go about that? Kelsey talked about how Chihiro is Akashi's project. I laughed so hard. I'm like, yes, that is exactly right. And then Anime Annie point out that Mayuzumi's VA, Chihiro's VA, is the same voice actor for Sawamura from Ace of the Diamond. I was like, what range? Like, the voice actor for Sawamura from Ace of the Diamond also voices Akashi from Haikyuu, as well as Marco from Attack on Titan. And he it's funny, Sawamura is kind of like an exception for that voice actor because Sawamura is so loud and vibrant. But Mayuzumi, Akashi, and Marco are kind of more softer spoken characters. So I could see that. So now I have to listen for Sawamura. I'm like, ah! But I also kind of want, like, I can't imagine Chihiro being like, oosh, oosh, oosh. I can't imagine that on the court. That would be amazing if that happened. I would love that. But also, my mind is blown, Anime Annie, because they pointed out that in episode 1 of season 1, Kuroko is walking around school holding a light novel and reading from it. And I remember it now because I was like singing like, for the dreamy far off look, like I was like, no, stuck in a book. Like I was singing Belle in that first episode way back when. And now I'm like, oh my God, Kuroko was reading the light novel, and Akashi found Meizumi reading the light novel and saw the connection. I was like, oh my God, just galaxy brain threads, y'all. Galaxy brain threads. It's insane. But here's the thing. I really liked this note Anime Annie pointed out about Mabuchi, because Mabuchi is a really cool character. I like Mabuchi on Rakuzen's team. But their nickname is Yasha or Yaksha, which means a malevolent spirit. But the spirit itself, the way that it is, can be translated in Japanese to have either a masculine or feminine air to it and have a representation. And then Hayama calls Mabuchi Big Sis, like Leonie, which is Big Sister. And then on top of that, Mabuchi uses watasabi, which as their pronoun, which can also be viewed in a more feminine light. So Anime Annie was saying that it's interesting because based on the syntax and the pronouns that are used with Mabuchi, either they could be trans, they could be gay, we don't know, but it's funny that I've been calling them a 90s BL character because of their look and some of their dialogue, which in fact, they very well could be. So I'm like, that's kind of cool. That makes me get like another layer with Mabuchi's character that I really like. So I'm like, that's nice. And then finally, Chuya's hat. Chuya's hat pointed out, at first what seems like a plot hole, but then it's an aspect that makes me even more mad about Akashi. They were pointing out, they were like, so Kisei said back in season 1, which this is true, that they didn't know why Kuroko left, like what Kuroko's deal was, why he was fed up with the Generation of Miracles. We know that it's a variety of factors, but one of those factors is the game itself, which with Ogiwara, that was like the straw that broke the back. And then there's obviously Kuroko wanting to like foster his own style of basketball over Akashi's, etc. But they were pointing out in their comment, they're like, it seems weird that Kisei just went along with, it seemed like Kisei's idea to do the ones in a line. And I was like, well, yeah. And then no one told Kisei that he was friends with Kuroko at the time. So they just didn't, which was they shouldn't have done it to begin with. But I feel like if Akashi had said that, oh, this is Kuroko's friend, then Kisei would have been like, oh, well, then let's do something different, and wouldn't have done it, right? I feel like that was my big argument with that. But in the scene in the locker room where Kuroko confronts Akashi and Akashi tells him it was to teach him a lesson, afterwards you see Kuroko surrounded by Midorima, Kisei, and Aomine and Murasaki Bara on all sides of him, telling him, and Kisei saying, oh, well, if it was your friend, you should have told us. But I thought that was somewhat canon, but now after Chuya's hat's comment, I'm like, no, that was all in Kuroko's head, which makes sense because stylistically you have the three of them surrounding him in that same spot in the locker room where he just got done talking to Akashi. Then you cut immediately to Aomine and it's pouring down rain and gloomy, and that's Kuroko connecting what he thinks Aomine would say with seeing Aomine out in the rain. So that's all in his head. So the reality is Kisei and the others may never have known about Ogiwara. Kuroko may have never told them about it. And Akashi obviously didn't. So, yeah, there's a good possibility that entire scene was just in Kuroko's mind. And I'm sure a lot of you were like, well, duh, we knew that from the start. And I was like, well, humor me. But yeah, so that's kind of crazy, right? Kind of crazy. I'm glad you pointed that out, though, Chuya's hat. Good to know. But yeah, I don't want Kuroko's basketball to end because I love it so much. And the only reason I'm not completely sad to be at this point is because I know we still have so much to go. Now when we get to the movie and the end of the manga, I'm going to start getting sad. But for right now, I'm more worried about how are we getting out of this because we're like at the lowest of lows. So we're 25 points behind. So what do we do? So I poured a cup of coffee this morning. I woke up, it's storming outside, it's humid, so my hair is like maximum frizz, and I was like, you know what, we just need to watch Kuroko's basketball, and maybe we'll get some reprieve. We'll see, right? We'll see. Maybe we'll get some reprieve. It's been 10 minutes. I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, we need to watch this set. So I'm excited, y'all, but I'm really nervous. So we'll just see what happens. So we're going to watch Kuroko's Basketball episodes 20, 21, 22, 70, 71, and 72. And we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's do this. Okay. I will say, I feel much better at the end of this set than I have the last 2 sets, which is the weirdest thing to say, right? Because Akashi's gone into the zone, so you would think I should feel like the ultimate defeat, but I don't. And I think one, it's because of Almine's Dungeons and Dragons amazingness that he was talking about at the end of. I cannot get over. I went back and went ahead and took some screenshots. I can't get over just how dorky Almine is my favorite Almine. It is my favorite Almine of all. And Imayoshi, who plays a lot of online games, is like, so this zone you're talking about, it's like going through a door, kind of like a dungeon door, but you were saying, is there something beyond it? Like, can you go? Imayoshi knows exactly what he's doing. He's like trying to like pull out that dorkiness from Almine. And Almine's just like, I don't want to talk about it, but yeah, it's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons. I love it. So I think if we had not had that little monologue by Almine at the end of this episode set that was explaining that of course there's a door beyond a door. Of course there's a door beyond a door that Kagami has to unlock. Of course there is. Yes, of course. If we hadn't got that little glimpse of hope through Kagami, then and we just saw Akashi go into the zone, I would have been like, oh, well, this is very doom and gloom, because this episode set, you know, for as better as it made me feel compared to last week, it's still not giving the warm fuzzy feelings, because they still have a 20-point gap. And now that Akashi has the powers of the zone, how are we going to close that 20-point gap when he's just making people like fall left and right? I'm like, what? How are we going to do this? What are we going to do here? So I don't know how in the world in the next episode set they were trying to, basically this episode set was them holding their own and keeping their head above water, but it was doing a lot of other things. But point-wise, score-wise, it was just keeping like in the state that they were in and not letting it get worse, which is a good thing. But how are they going to make up that deficit? Like what is going to happen? The only thing I could think of is we're going to talk about like the idea of the one player versus the team, the one versus the team, because that's all what this is coming back to. It's all coming back to the idea of individualistic play versus team play, right? Which I think we're going to tie back to when we get to episode 72/22 on here. But oh my God. So I want to just say I'm really happy with Koganei in this episode. I realized watching the OP that the reason I think I mixed up Furuhata in the last episode set was because we see Koganei in the OP quite a bit, and not even more so than Furuhata. So when we saw Furuhata last episode set, I was like, oh, I thought Koganei was going to come into this. The OP being a little bit spoilery, but I was very happy with Koganei in this episode set, what he did for the team. That moment of Matobe, I'm sorry, what? Just Matobe giving him the, giving him the most shippable thing ever. I'm like, there's just so much in this episode set. We need to talk about it. We need to talk about it so badly, right? I need to pull up also the end cards and get them ready, because I've just now realized I didn't do that before starting this discussion video. So I'm going to go find it right now and get it ready. But yeah, oh my God, this episode set. What do we do, y'all? What do we do? Here we go. Pull that up there and get those ready, right? Get them all good to go. I really liked this episode set. Like I said, it gave me a lot better feelings than I had the last two, because the last two end in such doom and gloom and despair that I'm like, dude, what? I'm like, what do we do? But this one I felt a lot better about, right? I felt a lot better with this one, which was good. Let me go here, the end cards. Okay, there we go. There we go. Oh, these are good. When we get to them, these are going to be good ones. I'm all about these. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay. Get them all set on here. Oh, what are these end cards? Look at this, Jess. Look at this, Jess. Oh my God. So, okay, let's talk about episode 70, 71, and 72. The Weight of Resolve. Man, I feel for my Izumi a little bit. That bitch. He's still that bitch, right? I feel for him. I do. For a lot of reasons. We're going to talk about this episode set, but what I loved most about this was that Seiren, Kuroko dug them out of that pit of despair and was like, screw this. We are not giving up. I want to win. I don't care if it's impossible. I'm not giving up. Until the final buzzer sounds and the fourth quarter's over, we are not giving up. We've come too far to give up now and to lose hope. And I honestly think that's what makes Akashi the most mad in this, is because Akashi's whole goal was to crush their spirits, to make them lose. And that's kind of been Teiko's thing since middle school, is just crushing their opponents until they lose the will to even fight, till they lose the will to even present themselves as an opponent, to erase all doubt that Rakuzen or Teiko could possibly lose. That's been like Akashi's mentality, is like, we're just going to destroy their spirits and make it to where there's no possible chance we can possibly not win. And Kuroko's like, screw that. No, we're not giving up no matter what. And I think that gets under Akashi's skin a little bit, because by the end of episode 21, he's just kind of like they're not giving up. How can that be? And it's like, no, they're not. And I feel like Rakuzen is the type of team that they're so used to crushing their opponents by that fourth quarter that they don't even have to try anymore. They've crushed their opponent's spirits. They've gotten so far ahead that they don't really have to give it, 100%. And Seiren's making them give it 100%. And I'm like, okay, cool. They're pushing them to their limits. But we'll talk about this game, but Seiren at the start of episode 20 is at their lowest. They have all this pressure from Rakuzen. Hyuuga drawn into the foul by Mabuchi. I was so frustrated with Hyuuga, but I kind of felt like Midorima. I was like Midorima at watching this point in the episode, because Midorima's like, you're incredibly foolish, but I don't blame you. That's kind of the reaction I have with Hyuuga, being like, that was a really dumb thing to not... I'm not used to the whole hands up in the air thing. I guess that's a Japanese thing with basketball, is you hold your hands up in the air when there's a foul called. We don't do that in the U.S. When there's a foul called, usually the players are really mad. They're just like... I feel like the U.S. gets away with a lot more in terms of their reaction to fouls than Japanese basketball. Because in the U.S., like, I'm thinking of all the high school games I've watched, and there's been guys been like, come on, like getting mad about it, but they didn't get a technical called for not raising their hands, or for, I think a technical is called when there's like a physical altercation. I've seen technicals called with a physical altercation from the players, like they literally get into a fight. Or I've seen it where the players like get up in the ref's face and yell. But Hyuuga was doing none of those things. Like, Hyuuga was starting to be like, well, no, I was like, he was defending himself. But I would not have classified Hyuuga as yelling by U.S. standards. But we're basically a bunch of feral possums on the court anyway in the U.S. So fair enough. But I really was like, damn it, Hyuuga. And I guess that's just the rules. You're supposed to raise your hands. And Hyuuga was so frustrated because he knew he was drawn into the foul. It wasn't a real foul. And he's like, I know that I don't deserve it. And and then he got that technical foul, which made it 4. And man, everyone doubting Seiren at this point. Everyone in the stands doubting Seiren, saying they're not going to win. I was like, that was giving me hope, because I'm like, usually when the stands and stuff are doubtful of our protagonists, I'm like, they'll pull their way out. They'll find a way. It just makes it look... I've been conditioned through trauma to get to this point of thinking that, right? But at the third quarter, it was 62-40. And by the end of the third quarter, it's 73 or 74 to 52. So the gap is not changed. It's just steadily stayed consistent, right? And Akashi is 90% sure that they will be able to completely take Seiren down. 90%. I like that Akashi is a little bit more not underestimating Seiren as much as Toho is. Toho is like, there's like a 0 to 1% chance. And I'm like, what? And then Akashi's giving him a 10% chance at least. So come on, Toho. Quit doubting them. But Hyuuga's taken out. And then Koganei is subbed in. They just slid under the radar getting Koganei into the match. They didn't draw attention to it at all. He was just suddenly there. And I was like, oh, there's Koganei. I've waited all game for him to show up. And then Shutoku shows up. I love that Takao calls out Midorima, being like, well, someone said they wanted to watch the game. And Midorima's like, somebody was throwing a tantrum because we weren't going to come watch the final game. And Midorima's like, I wasn't throwing a tantrum. I love it. That's so fun. I absolutely love it. I didn't look to see if he was carrying a lucky item or not. I'll have to go back and check that out. I don't know. I love that Midorima says he understands Hyuuga's desire to win. He's like, it was really foolish. He was a baka, but I get where he was coming from. Because Midorima's felt the same way against Rakuzen. So he's like, I get that Hyuuga wants to win so badly. It's frustrating when something's called that can severely impact the game that you know was not a good call. And I just love that Shutoku and them all just kind of like look at Midorima like, where is this coming from? And I'm like, have you guys not noticed Midorima's been subtly having character growth this whole series? I love it. Midorima's one of my favorites. I really like Midorima a lot because of how consistent he is, but yet at the same time, he still grows as a character. I just really love Midorima throughout this entire series. He's one of my favorites. I like him an awful lot. An awful lot. And then Kinjo, what have I got? Kaijo looking glum. I like that Kaijo's kind of like, man, we were wanting Seiren to lose, but this is just kind of brutal. But Kisei doesn't lose hope. Kisei stays MVP support, where he's just like, we can't give up on him yet. Even when they look super depressed and glum about it, like Kisei doesn't give up hope. And I love that. He's still supporting him. And Kuroko, that when they're all on the bench looking like they're down and out and like, well, we're behind 20 points. It's the third quarter. How can we catch back up? I love Kuroko. Like anytime Kuroko gets brought to tears, I'm like, don't you dare. Like you leave Kuroko alone. Like I want to protect him in like the corner of the room. Like leave him alone. But Kuroko's tears are from frustration this time where he's like, we're not giving up. And I love that he just stands up and cries from the bench that he wants to win. He wants to keep fighting. He's not giving up. He is going back in. Screw it if we don't have a plan. We'll figure something out. We'll make it work. And I love that everyone has the shocked Pikachu face. Like all the Generation of Miracles are like, Kuroko's coming back in? What? But he can't do anything. What? And Akashi's just like, this is not going according to my plans that I've lined out in advance. Like, Akashi looks like he's about to go get the manager at a restaurant being like, this is not the food that I ordered. Like, just, that's the kind of expression he has when Kuroko comes back on the court. And I just, again, I want to give Akashi a fair shake. I do. And I will try to be as open-minded as possible, but he's so pretentious. He's such a dick that I'm like, I can't, he's not the type of character I like in a show, and I'm trying to be open-minded, but when he's just like, your conviction is meaningless, I'm like, just like want to just like throw him out a window, you know, because Rakuzen has really great personality because of how relatable they are. I cannot relate at all to the pretentiousness of Akashi. I just cannot. And it just seems like whenever Rakuzen's starting to have fun and just like whenever their characters are starting to have like the kind of spirit of basketball, like each of them go through that motion. But then Akashi shows up and just like saps the fun away. He's just like, basketball's not fun, and just like throws it out a window. And I'm like, why can't you let this game be enjoyable? Why can't you do this? Because it really starts to get really enjoyable. I liked the game and the matchups, and even when Seiren wasn't winning, and even when each matchup Seiren technically loses that match, it's still fun and engaging, and the characters are having fun and growing. And then Akashi shows up and he's like, can we get back to just winning? And I'm like, get out of here. I just want to like shove him away, right? So Miyazumi. Talk about Miyazumi. Let's talk about him. Miyazumi's whole thing is that he is much more outwardly emotional than Kuroko. Like, he is getting emotional on the court. He's getting frustrated that he's not getting noticed, that he's not getting noticed, that things aren't going his way. Like, he's getting outwardly emotional. I can tell that it's Sawamura's voice actor now. Now that it's been pointed out to me, I was listening and I'm like, oh, I can hear Sawamura. He just sounds grumpy. He sounds like a grumpy Sawamura, which is hilarious to me. But Mayuzumi, he's frustrated that he's being underestimated. And I'm like, bitch, do you not know what the Phantom Sixth Man's role is? I don't think you do. I think that Mayuzumi was assuming like, oh, I'm the secret trump card, the Phantom Sixth Man. I'm gonna be one that like does this awesome stuff for the team. And I'm like, Mayuzumi, that's kind of not what the Phantom Sixth Man is. The Phantom Sixth Man, Kuroko's whole role has always been during Teiko to help others, not to make himself stand out or get any self-recognition. And I don't think Mayuzumi quite realized that. I think Mayuzumi thought that his team would be like, oh, good job, Mayuzumi, way to support us. And they kind of did at first. And Mayuzumi kind of brushed off being like, I know I'm good. You don't have to tell me, because he's got an ego. And then as the game goes on, he starts to realize, oh, the role of the sixth man is not getting any accolades for yourself. You are literally a tool to be used. And that's kind of why in the last set, I don't feel bad that Kuroko stood out and made himself known on the court. I don't hate that. Like, I know Akashi treats it like the most disappointing thing and that Kuroko squandered his potential as a shadow. But I'm like, I love that Kuroko did something for himself to make himself his own player. Like, screw it. Like, that's what his prerogative was. But we'll talk about Kuroko's resolve and his pride here in a little bit. But I'm not mad that Kuroko learned those things. Like Arjo said at the beginning, they were needed for them to get this far. So it's not a bad thing. But then, yeah, the overriding. I'm like, Mayuzumi keeps making himself stand out with his plays. Seiren lets him do it. And then Kuroko has the more resolve to be the shadow. Because that's the thing. Kuroko is very modest. And he very much has his entire basketball career been like, I am willing to sacrifice myself for the team, right? That had been his whole thing. Mayuzumi doesn't seem like he was wanting to sacrifice himself for the team. He wanted to help the team win, but he wanted to stand out. And that's not the Phantom Man's role. And so Kuroko's like, yeah, you may be a better basketball player, but you've got a lot more ego than I do. And you're a lot more self-centered than I am. So I'm going to show you the resolve it takes to be a shadow. It's not easy. Being a shadow is very self-sacrificing. You don't get to stand out. You have to let others stand out in your place. And Mayuzumi, that doesn't seem like his style at all. That's not what he wanted to do. It's like versus the team, Kuroko's like, I am willing to sacrifice myself being a shadow for the team, whereas Mayuzumi was being a shadow for himself to gain recognition. And that's not how that position works, right? Right? So Kisei, I love Kisei's line where he's like, it's like easier said than done to return to the shadows. I'm like, yeah, because once you get those accolades, you get greedy. Once you get that recognition, you start getting greedy and you start wanting more for yourself. It's not easy being humble and being able to sit back on the bench like Kuroko does. It's not easy, and not everybody can do that. I love that. And then Mayuzumi, when he messes up, he calls out saying, yeah, he realizes his team is just friendly when they can use him. And that, I think Mayuzumi points out what Kuroko doesn't point it out at the time. He just kind of like hints around at it. But Mayuzumi dives straight into the problem of the Phantom Sixth Man in that they are just a tool. They're just to be used. They're just passing the ball. They don't get the ball for themselves. Their job is literally just to pass it to other people. And Mayuzumi is like, well, I'm just being used by others. And it's like, yes, that's been the whole thing. That's kind of why Kuroko, wanted to do something different. So that completely makes sense that he knows how Teiko was. And here's the thing. Yes, it was Mayuzumi's fault that he got greedy, right? It was his fault that he got greedy. And I will give Akashi this because Akashi doesn't want to admit that he made a mistake, that Akashi made a mistake. He doesn't want to tie any of the blame back to himself. That has been a staple thing with Akashi. Akashi does not admit when he is wrong, and he will not ever seemingly get to that conclusion of what we've seen, that anything could have possibly been his fault. That's not Akashi's way, right? And that's one part about his character that I'm kind of like, I don't like that. Because he's like, well, I'm not going to sub you out for your mistake. And I'm kind of like, but Akashi, you were just talking up Mayuzumi to the others being like, he's so much better than Kuroko. He's a much more skilled player. He's doing this. Like Mayuzumi is kind of a monster of your own making, Akashi, in a lot of ways. But then whenever things start to go south, you won't take any of the responsibility of the problem. You just pass it all off to that person, being like, yep, this was all your fault. Guess you goofed. I'm like, you are somewhat in the blame there. You've kind of made this monster. And that whole, that dynamic, that contrast of, because at first, he has this moment on the bench right after that, because he doesn't sub Mayuzumi out. And I was about to give Akashi a lot of credit, because he came back saying like, hey, I'm not subbing you out. We still need your strength. And he says that I'm counting on your strength to help Rakuzen win. And I was like, that was a very ship moment. I was like, that's a shippable moment between those two. That's really nice. That's cool. I like that. It kind of gave me a little like Himuro Murasaki Bara vibes from the Yosen game. I'm like, okay, cool. I was like, Akashi, I will give you credit. You're having this nice little tender moment with Mayuzumi when the others are doubting him. All right. And then what happens right after that is that Mayuzumi has this like horrified look on his face as he realizes that no. Akashi just said that to you to get you back in the game. He's not actually relying on your strength anymore. He's just going to use you like a tool to help the team win the game. But he doesn't care about you at all. And I'm like, oh, it just felt like salt. It felt like I was given a canister of sugar being like, oh, this was nice. And then I took a bite of it and salt instead of sugar. I'm like, never mind. I was like, that's just kind of what it felt like. Because Mayuzumi realizes how hollow all of it is. That Akashi is just using people for his own gain. Like, he doesn't care about anybody else. He doesn't care about the team, doesn't care about the sport. He's using it for his own victory to say that he's not lost and to keep that roster going. And that's one thing I just don't like about his character. He's just using him as a tool. And I'm like, what do we do with that, right? And we'll talk about that in episode 22 in more detail. But Kagami gets in the zone. And, he backs up off of Akashi, which I'm like, you can't knock him down if he's backed up away from you. I'm like, genius. And then I love that Aomine is happy that Kagami's back in the zone. Aomine gets so excited when Kagami gets back in the zone. It's great. And things aren't over yet. Kuroko, he can still get a little bit of misdirection in. I like it. Even though Mayuzumi is going to be used as a distraction, the game is not over. So we go to episode 21, which is I'm Desperate, which is Koganei. I like it. I like that episode 20 was Kuroko saying the weight of his resolve. Koganei in episode 21 was I'm Desperate. And then Akashi was like, let me warn you. And I was like, I like that Kuroko's all about his own resolve. And Koganei is about his own, like, desperation. And Akashi's like, I'm threatening you. And I was like, I'm trying my hardest. But yeah, so Kuroko wants that 6-man phantom status. That's what I wanted to talk about. Like, Kuroko, what I like about it is Kuroko's like, yes, I've improved as a player. I've been able to do things on my own for myself, which I'm proud of. But I'm not going to let you just take that 6-man status. I'm not going to let you get that new and improved gloss. Hell no, I'm taking it back. You may be the new model, but sometimes the OG's better, right? You can't make them like Kuroko anymore, basically. But Mayuzumi, his spirit is crushed. Crushed because he realizes that he's just on the court as a body, basically. He's the first person to realize that Akashi does not give a shit about any of them. Does not care about any of them. He's like, if I can do it on my own, I'll do it on my own. But I guess I need you, so I guess I'll use you to get my goal. And I do believe that Kasamatsu is correct, that what he did to Mayuzumi is heartless. It really is. The words of him needing the strength to defeat Rakuzen is so hollow when you see, because words are one thing, actions are quite another. And that's kind of Akashi's deal, is that he says one thing, and it seems like it's sweet or or, you know, good-spirited, but then his actions, you know, the phrase actions speak louder than words, his actions tell quite a different story. And I'm like, dude, I want to like you, but man, that was a heartless move to Mayuzumi. Like, you really did not foster, like, he saw right through you, and you don't even care that he saw right through you. That's the thing. Like, he just needs you on the court, and your sense of duty to Rakuzen is the only thing. Because, yeah, Mayuzumi's a third year. He spent 3 years with Rakuzen. Of course, he has pride as a player and a sense of duty towards his team, and Akashi knows that and is just using him. And it's like, I guess what gets me too is that Akashi, we've watched other captains from other teams do things that show a fostering of camaraderie with their team, of friendship, of caring, of team compassion, and Akashi is devoid of all of it. He just is. It's just threats. It's threats and saying, like, don't you have pride as a team? Victory is our main objective. And I'm like, dude, you are really on that victory is the only way high horse. And I feel bad for Akashi because I feel like he needs like a high intense therapy session to like figure out that that's not the only thing in life. But it's kind of just, it's just sad at this point because like he just doesn't foster any sense of teamwork or seem to care about anybody. And it's kind of just sad. But I don't like his character because of it. I don't feel bad for him. I'm just kind of like, you're just kind of tragic. But I don't think that makes me feel like I need to feel sorry for you. I don't know. Let's talk about more of this episode. I'm not going to get on. I'm, again, trying to give Akashi a fair shake. Trying to. So Teppei's injured with his knee. Teppei's injured with his knee because, of course, he's reaching the limits, which should not be surprising. But I feel like there was a moment where Riko tried to say something to him and he just kept going and she was like, at this point, what do I say? She's like, it's the final game. We have literally 8 minutes left. Teppei knows he's on his last limits. Riko knows that. But at this point, what do you say? You can't take him out. You need a center. Matobei's not going to be able to stand up to Nebuya. You can't take him out. So at this point with 8 minutes left, if Teppei still has the spirit and wants to keep going and can, at this point, you just gotta let it go. And as somebody that has watched injuries in sports anime and been like, take him out! What can you do? Teppei, like she said, Teppei would fight his way back like a damn bear. So, and this could be his last game. So, let it go, I guess. I'm very torn about it, but I get why she lets him stay on the court. But it's just like, in my heart of hearts, I'm like, Teppei, you know you shouldn't be on there with that knee. But maybe it's not gotten to the point where it's too bad yet, right? I do love Tsuchida yelling from the bench, though, where he's telling them not to give up. He's like, come on, guys, defense. And I'm like, that just warmed my heart so much. And the gap at no point in this episode set gets below 17, which is, how with Akashi in the zone are you going to, like, close that gap? I don't know. I don't know if I can wait until the last set. I don't know. Obviously, I will have to wait before the movie to get the other specials and stuff, and I'll see everybody's comments by then. But I'm like, I don't know if I can wait to watch the next set because I just need to know. I just need to know, right? But yeah, at this rate, Hayama, all the players of Rakuzen go through a period in this episode set where they start to lose motivation. And that's where I wonder if the way that Seiren will win is if Akashi gets in the zone. We'll talk about the zone with the next episode. If he gets in the zone and decides he doesn't need anybody else and they all kind of lose spirit, and then Kuroko comes up from the shadows and is like, hey, basketball is not a one-man sport. It requires a team. And we'll talk about that with episode 22. We'll get there. But Hayama seems not as motivated until Izuki like takes him on. And that's something with Izuki and with Koganei I really liked in this episode set was that they both, we know Koganei and Izuki are not uncrowned kings. They are not generation miracles. They are not the best of the best. They are like very much like Kamuro, where they're just an every person doing the best that they can. But what I loved about this episode set was they didn't give up. They kept trying. They kept doing the best they could. They were desperate and they're like, what else can we do? We have nothing to lose at this point except to try our best. And I love that fighting spirit. I love that Izuki was like, well, I may not be as strong as you, but I'm smarter than you, and I'm going to figure out how to do something. And even when Izuki knew he couldn't stop Hayama, he's like, I'm taking him on at his best. He's have to use 5 fingers for the dribbling. I'm taking on an uncrowned king at his strongest. And even if I can't beat him, I'm still making him work. And I'm like, yes, that's the thing. Is like what I loved about this game up until Akashi came with like a bucket of water to douse it, was that the characters were like, yeah, I want to try to match you and play against you, and it's fun, and I'm excited by the challenge, right? And it's just that idea of playing basketball and challenging each other rather than trying to just like destroy your opponents, rather than trying to crush their spirits or be like a bulldozer, when you instead try to like match it and make each other better. Like, it was starting to remind me of the Kaijo versus Seiren game, and I was starting to really like it. And then Akashi would come in and be like, are you cool? Kids are cool. You don't want to see me angry. He was like Akashi was having a Hulk moment. He's like, you don't want to see me angry, sort of thing. And they were like, okay, you know. But what I loved was Izuki, like, getting that moment where he keeps going and he can handle the 5-finger dribble and getting Hayama riled up. I loved that. I loved it. It was so good, right? And then Akashi threatens that if he doesn't cool down, what will happen? And Hayama cooled himself down. Like, Akashi really didn't need to threaten him. Hayama got himself cooled down on his own. He even cools down Nabuya during the game, being like, whoa, dude, like, cool off. And Hayama actually liking Izuki's puns, that was hilarious. I loved that, where he was like, ah! And Izuki's like, damn it, I thought I'd get him. But he was still strong enough to like them. And so Izuki staying calm, I loved that. Kagami's in the zone. And Koganei helping everyone's spirits, being like, let's just have fun. Come on, let's just keep going. And then him telling Teppei, he's like, I'm actually desperate, but this is the only thing I can do, is to help keep everybody motivated. I love that. I think that Akashi gets so frustrated because Seiren's not backing down. They're taking this challenge head on. And at the beginning of episode 20, Rakuzen was like, oh, well, we're going to crush Seiren's spirits and they're going to like lose the will to fight. And they're not losing the will to fight. They just keep going. And I'm like, Like, I felt so much better in this set about that than I did the last set. I was like, yes, good. Glad we're doing well with that, right? Glad we're doing well. And so, yeah, Teppei, Koganei says he's meekness. Teppei's meekness is being noticed by Nabuya. I'm waiting for Nabuya to connect the dots to think that Teppei has an injury, and that's why he's not doing so much. But Teppei is just trying to match him and meet him the best that he can, which is fine. And then I just love that Kagami has like a ring of fire. It's like, I was only thinking of Johnny Cash being like, I fell into a burning ring of fire. And then as he's singing in the zone, it's like it went down, down, down. Except it's in water, so the metaphor doesn't quite work, right? But I also love when Almine's like, it's a metaphor. Just dorky Almine is my favorite. And so, yeah, he's sinking deeper into the zone. Akashi is challenging him. Koganei takes on Mabuchi. If you had told me Koganei was going to take on Mabuchi in this game, I would have laughed at you and been like, what? But it's so good. Honestly, some of my favorite parts of this entire set is Koganei versus Mabuchi. That maybe is my favorite matchup. Like I may be using Koganei as the thumbnail because, well, Akashi was the thumbnail for the last episode set because there wasn't a good shot of Mayuzumi that I could find for that one. But I think I'm going to use Koganei with the kitten, we'll talk about that, as the thumbnail because it's just, Koganei is like the MVP of this episode set. Like, he kept everybody's spirits going. Now, granted, Kuroko is the one that got them all back in the game with him crying and saying he didn't want to lose. Not going to take away from Kuroko with that. But Koganei was like the unsung hero, like just behind the scenes, keeping everybody's spirits up, facing on Mabuchi head on so that Hyuuga could watch and learn about the void shot. Like honestly, Koganei could have saved this whole episode set. This whole game could have been saved by Kuroko and Koganei, the Shadow and the Master of None. Like, I'm so floored by what he did in this episode set. It's great. Him taking on Mabuchi and just being like, I'm just having fun and figuring it out. I love that Mabuchi doesn't know how to deal with him. He's like, I don't know what to say to you. Like, just not phased. I had said a few episode sets back that I wanted Koganei versus Akashi because I thought Akashi wouldn't know how to deal with Koganei. He's like, I'm not going to deal with you. You're like, you have no presence and you're just like not a threat. But I like Mabuchi being the one to handle him because Mabuchi is so like emotional about it and like he just has such great reactions. And then it's honestly like Koganei's character song. We did the song reactions. Koganei has a whole song about let's just have fun and play. And here the character song is like in full force. It's wonderful. I'm like, I absolutely love that. It's great. And so then the 4 back-to-back, the character cards of Mabuchi knowing how each of our wild animal instinct guys are represented. Kagami is the tiger, obviously. Amine is the jaguar, obviously. Hiyama is a cheetah, makes perfect sense. And then I was waiting for Koganei to be like a monkey because we've always kind of had that association with him. But him just being a house cat, that was the funniest damn thing. I loved that so much. And I loved Mabuchi's expression like, I just thought it was so cute. It was so good. But yeah. It was just wonderful. And I love that Sakurai, who's a shooting guard too, is like having so much fun, like being like, yes, like Koganei can do this. And Wakamatsu's like, oh yeah, that could be too. Imayoshi's such a bitch. When he comes in, he's like, hey, I hate to be a downer. I'm like, you don't hate to be a downer at all. You are happy to come in and be a negative Nancy. Don't you even? I was just like, it was great. Lies. Imayoshi is just like a sophisticated trash king. He is almost as much of a trash king as Hanamiya. He's just like the sophisticated, he's like a garbage disposal in a house, right? It looks very fancy and shiny and seems like it's fine and is very useful, but it still has garbage in it. Like, I just want the Grinch song playing around Imayoshi and Hanamiya. You have termites in your soul. But Koganei, I love that we got that back. The backstory comes back full swing in this, where his sister's thinking like we had the flashback of him and his sister. And apparently he did baseball, tennis, and soccer before finding basketball as his thing. I'm curious now, like I don't know hardly anything about tennis at all. So I don't know like the positions, the plays, like how that works. But for baseball and soccer, I'm like, what would Koganei have been? I don't think Koganei would have been a goalie in soccer, so I don't know what his role would have been. But baseball, since I've watched Ace of the Diamond now, I'm like, what position would Koganei have played in baseball? Not a pitcher, not a catcher. Could he have played first base? Could he have played outfield? Would he have been a shortstop? Could he have played third base? I don't know what base he would have played or what position. For some reason, I feel Koganei would need to have a really strong arm to throw to the pitcher. If he was, I could see him in the outfield, but then I could also see him like on first base. I feel like Koganei would be on first base because he wouldn't have to do the throwing, but he'd just be there to catch the ball and be reliable. So I feel like maybe he was first baseman. Koganei, first baseman. I could see that. I'll go with that. I can see that. I'm sure in the comments y'all will have other ideas of what he could be. Especially Kelsey's probably like, well, here's where they could be at, right? I mean, Kuroko. Well, now I want to get like I'm going to dive down a rabbit hole of what position each player would be like. Kuroko, I want to say would be a pitcher, but would Teppei be a catcher? I can see Teppei being a catcher, but we're going to I can't dive down the rabbit hole. I'm going to think about that one. Otherwise, I'll be here all day thinking of their positions of Kagami would Kagami be a catcher or a pitcher? Or would he be a batter? I feel like Kagami would be like cleanup. But enough baseball chat. Let's get back to Kuroko's basketball. So yeah, but the Master of None, he has a lot of natural athleticism, and Koganei is able to, what I like about it is Koganei is able to read situations. Like Koganei is he's not the smartest person, but he's pretty far up there. Like Koganei is actually, we know from outside of the court that Koganei is actually pretty smart and that he does really well in school. So he actually is able to observe and make some really good observations and naturally draw out things athletically from his opponents. And what's so cool about this is that Koganei is able to allow Hyuuga to watch him face up against Mabuchi figure out the center of gravity, figure out what Mabuchi's strategy is so that when he goes in, he's going to be able to fight back. And I'm like, I love that connection. That was so wonderful. And Hyuuga at the end of episode 21 says he knows how to stop the void shot and he's going to go help in and sub in for Koganei. So going to the episode 22, getting in on this. When they said that none of the other players had the accuracy of Hyuuga, I was like, Hyuga's accuracy is not the best. When he's on his game, it's really good. But when he's off his game, it's terrible. So I was like, And they're worried about Rakuzen starting to take 3-point shots. And so Mabuchi, I love it. I love that Koganei takes on Mabuchi and he's able to like face up to the... What's fun about this too is that Koganei, even when he doesn't stop the void shot, but even though he figured out how to get past it, he doesn't show... Him and Izuki both were not defeated in this episode set. They both were like, damn it, we tried, we got to keep going. It reminded me a lot of, again, last Ace of the Diamond reference, maybe, but it reminded me a lot of Shirasu from Sato's team, where Shirasu, when he got frustrated, he wasn't defeated. He was just like, damn it, like, you know, wanted to get back at it. And that's kind of the same energy that I got from Koganei and Izuki in this, which was so refreshing and awesome. I loved them being, like, them not giving up, and Mabuchi being like, what is your deal? And just, and Hyuuga. Hosoya, who is Hyuga's voice actor, when he was at the end of episode 21 being like, I'm going back in, like with that deep, sultry voice, I was like, yes, please. Yes, please. Love it. And they're like, Hyuuga, are you sure you're good? And I love that little face from Mabuchi, from Koganei, where he's just like, I'll get a picture of it, where he's like, I'm sorry that I couldn't do more. And Hyuga's like, what are you talking about? You're the reason I can fight. Like, you're the reason I did this. Like, I'm going to crush him for you. It's all right. And I love that Kuroko's like in the background with a little smile, like, that's my team, right? That's my team. We're all in this together. And him putting his like fist out for Koganei to fist bump. It was so good. Like that camaraderie is something that I love about Seiren. That he's like, I'm counting on you. Like they don't let each other get, beat up about whatever happens. Like they managed to pull through as a team. And then Matobe, I'm sorry, but that moment that Matobe puts the towel over Koganei's head and like looks so stoic about it, I'm like, you like just get out of here. I was like, the shipping is off the charts. I can't. That moment, oh my God. Stop. Just stop, y'all. And then, so we go back to Rakuzen, and Akashi's being very quiet. I was expecting Akashi to, like, speak in for the coach, but the coach ends up talking about how we're going to keep attacking till we crush Seiren. And Akashi tells Mabuchi not to take his eyes off of Hyuuga. And then he's like, there's still life in Kyoshi's eyes. I don't know why, but just the way he says that is so, like, cruel. Where he doesn't say, like, oh, Teppei's still putting up a fight. He's like, there's still life in his eyes. This is a problem. Like, just, what the hell? But he tells Nabuya what to do. Tells Mabuchi what to do. He tells Hayama, he's like, are you gonna, like, fight and do things? And Hayama's like, yeah, I know. And then he says nothing to Miyazumi. Nothing. Says nothing to Miyazumi. He's not even worth his time anymore. And Miyazumi is like, how economical of you to use me until I've got nothing left. That's the thing. Miyazumi hits it on the head. He's figured it out before everybody else. And maybe Rakuzen knows, but they know how strong Akashi is, so they just let it go and accept it. But Miyazumi is like, you really have no need for me as... Like, it's such a polar opposite of Seiren, because Seiren, you just had Koganei, who technically was used to take the place of Hyuuga to figure out Mabuchi's strategy so Hyuuga could come in and do good. But whenever he got off the bench, Hyuuga didn't go up to him and be like, okay, good, you were useful, now sit down. I can't even imagine Hyuuga saying anything like that. Like, he didn't come up to him being like, you've served your purpose, now I will go and do my thing. Like, Hyuga's not pretentious like that. He didn't. Instead, he was like, hey, I'm able to come out and do my thing because of you. Like, you helped contribute to the team. Like, it's a team effort. We all contributed in some way, shape, or form to the win, to us staying afloat. Like, so yeah, like I can't imagine Hyuuga ever saying anything like, I can't imagine Hyuuga completely ignoring another player as captain on the team. So again, that's why I'm kind of like, that was such a dick move, just leaving Mayuzumi out. Like, you didn't even acknowledge him. You didn't even look over to him and be like, hey, keep doing what you're doing. Like, you could have just said that. But no, Mayuzumi knows he's just being used at this point. And it's really sad. Like, I hate it for him. I'm like, he just keeps going, right? He's like, he's like, I'm not sure what it is, but something's off about Akashi. Yeah, Akashi, things are not going the way Akashi wants. And Akashi's like, I guess I'm going to have to, like, use my trump card, I guess. You know. Now, the part about Teppei not saying anything, and Riko's like, just never mind, keep going. I do love the shot of the 5 of them with their head there, like, huddling. That's a really good shot. I love that a lot, where they're just, like, all getting ready to go. That's probably one of my favorite shots of all 5 of them. It's so damn good. I really love it. They're all going in. Our 5 boys, Teppei, Izuki, Hyuuga, Kagami, and Kuroko, just doing it to it. And I love that it's the 4th quarter. And Kasamatsu's like, yeah, they've not given up yet. When it comes to killing giants, attitude matters more than strategy. That's literally it. Like, it's a long game, you know, because if you can play the long game and keep your spirits up, there's a lot you can do with that, right? If you give up, then you have a 0% chance of winning. But if you keep your spirits up, then there's no telling what can happen. And then I like that Hyuuga, after that big bad talk, was just like, I'm actually terrified. He's like, can you do something? My hands are shaking. What I thought Riko was going to do was have this really heartfelt, sweet moment where she was like grabbed his hand and was like, you can do it. You can do it, Hyuuga. Like, that's what I thought was going to happen, and it was going to be kind of melodramatic. But no, instead she slaps on the back. She's like, get out of here! Go! And then he realizes later that that slap has everyone on the team's hopes and power embedded in it. Hyuuga and Riko, give me that ship all day. I love that this show is pushing it so hard. I'm like, I'm here for it. Give it to me. Yes, please. And because, yeah, it's just like, Riko's not a damsel in distress, and Riko is not a softie. She's a hardcore badass bitch. And I'm like, she's like, get out there and do your thing, Hyuuga. You know what to do. You're the captain. Come on. I love it. I love that slap. It felt very much like Iwaizumi and Oikawa. That slap where Iwaizumi comes over and slaps Oikawa on the back, or vice versa. It felt like that dynamic, and I am 1,000 times here for it. So yeah, Hyuuga and them, they all get back in the game. It's great. Rakuzen's not digging the spirit that they all have. Everybody's looking and just kind of in awe that Seiren's still doing it. It's great. And Mabuchi and Hyuuga face to face. And Hyuuga explains that his center of gravity is what allows Mabuchi to do what he does. It depends on whether he shifts it forward, backward, or keeps it centered. I like that this show, despite superpowers, because that's literally what they are, despite that, the show is still attempting to give a rational explanation to things. And I'm kind of all about that. I like that that's still the case. I'm like, good. We're still trying to give some kind of rationale. And Teppei just keeps moving. I like that Hyuuga says Teppei is reckless. Because he is. He comes across as being this calm, cool, collected teddy bear, but there's a reckless side to Teppei. And he's been like that. It's been consistent the whole series. And Teppei he's stubborn enough where he won't give up. He will keep working on that leg despite the fact that it's injured. And Hyuga's like, well, you know what? Hyuga's like, fine. If Teppei is not going to back down, then I'm just going to have to keep him riled up. And he's like, how long have you been a sinner? Come on. What are we doing? And I'm like, I love it. I absolutely love it. And then Teppei just manages to get the ball. And I love that Riko's like sitting there crying, where she's just like these two, Hyuuga and Teppei, that were like at each other's throat last year, are like friends and like just cheering each other on. It's so good. And Koganei's like, yeah, like it's so inspiring. I just freaking love it. And then Mabuchi's like, now you've done it, Junpei-chan. And like Rakuzen, they kind of like, they're getting onto each other, and Hayama is like, hey, we would quit being a short fuse, Nabuya, get in the game. Like they're cheering each other on and like keeping each other motivated. Like this part of the episode I loved, because I was like, Akashi going in the zone whatever. Like, if you, like, his whole, like, I'm going to make people kneel at my feet, like Jafar from Aladdin. I was like, you know, that stuff doesn't impress me. Like, that stuff I roll my eyes at, and I'm like, okay, sure. Because it's like, whatever. Like, at this point, why are we surprised? But the stuff that surprises me that I really like is Rakuzen and them, like, getting each other motivated and, like, keeping the game going and appearing as humans and, you know, having a great time with basketball. Like, that stuff I like. I like that banter back and forth. Akashi's absolute robot mentality, I don't like that. I'm like, whatever. It's just villainous and it's vanilla, get out of here. Like, Kuroko likes vanilla shakes. I don't. So, I do like vanilla shakes. I'm lying. But they acknowledge that Teppei, if not for his injury, would have been as strong as the three from Rakuzen, which is such a... But I like that Teppei is not letting that deter him, right? Because, yeah, Teppei is dealing with a handicap this entire series, and he's just rolling with it. I'm like... And it makes me feel kind of bad for Teppei, because I'm like, knowing how strong he could have been, it's just... it's so frustrating, right? But they keep on playing him. And then Hyuuga is bound and determined to stop the void, to figure it out. And I love that Himuro is the one that explains how the void shot works. I love that Himuro's like, oh, here it is. And the thing about that is it's fitting for Himuro to explain it, because Himuro has the mirage shot. He has, like, the fancy moves that are hard to detect. So that's kind of, you know, it seems fitting that Himuro's the one to point it out, right? I like that. I like that Himuro is able to, like, talk about that. It's fun. I like it. He uses the remaining power to shoot. And yeah, that in hindsight, and you think, if you've never played basketball before, you would think, you're like, how could something as simple as lowering your gravity in the moment, how could that fake people out? Like, you would think that that wouldn't work. But if you've ever played basketball is such in the moment, little things happening very quickly, that, yeah, something as simple as crouching down a little bit lower, unless you are so observant, you can figure it out, kind of like Kuroko is observant and Akashi is observant. Unless you can just able to detect it, it's very easy to, like, fake somebody out with it. It really is. Basketball always looks effortless, but it is a very, very high energy sport. It looks like it's effortless, but it is, I would say basketball and baseball are most similar in that they look like they don't take a lot of effort, but they take an exceptional amount of effort. Yeah, I would say those are how those two sports are similar. Not similar in many other ways, but in those two ways, very similar. They look effortless, but they are in fact very, very difficult. I would say that baseball is just more of a team sport than even basketball is. But I love that, again, Hyuuga saying, I don't care if you're Rakuzen, I don't care if you're an uncrowned king, I don't care how strong you are, I've got to stop the shot because we want to win. So it's that resolve to win. I think that what I loved most about this episode set is that Seiren is not giving up. That weight of that resolve. They're like, we made it to finals, bitches, and we don't care how strong you are, we're going to take you and challenge you until the bitter end. We are not giving up. And I just want that mentality to stay until the end of the series. Also, taking a shot of Mitobe with his arm around Koganei. The OTP. OTP status. Done. OTP status. It's over. I love it. Just let me have this. And then Midorima being like, the return of their shooter, their defense is spread out. I love that one point where Hyuuga shoots and Mitobe's like, that's a beautiful shot. Like, it's just, oh, it's so good. I love it. I love Midorima giving Hyuuga the benefit there. Yeah, when he says it's a good shot. Like, for there's no spin or shift. Like, for Midorima to give that compliment to Hyuuga, mwah, mwah, mwah. Just character growth all around, full circle all around. And then Akashi, what is he thinking? And Miyazumi is noticing, like, what's he thinking? And thinking about the ring of fire surrounding Kagami. And Akashi tries to step in, but he has to back out, which is, you know, not something that Akashi wants to admit, that he's having to back out. And then we get Akashi, like, in his doom and gloom emo gym without any lights on. I'm like, I Rakuzen's got the money. You could have turned the lights on. You're just trying to like create this disturbing moonlit atmosphere. Okay, edgelord. Like, come on. But yeah, him saying that he watched the Toho. What's funny about this is he watched the Toho versus Seiren game and admits that being able to get in the zone like that hadn't occurred to him. And him just being like, feeling intimidated by Kagami, which is interesting. It's been kind of hinted at this entire set. But him in front of the door saying like it's possible with sufficient focus to push open the door and awareness of your own trigger to unlock it. So basically what Aomine had discovered for himself and what he taught Kagami to discover for himself, Akashi is now realizing as well, that you can forcibly push open the door and get into the zone out of a trigger, right? And I think it's so fitting that Kagami's trigger is wanting to help his friends, and Akashi's trigger is abandoning hope and thinking it's only him that can save the day. That contrast is so poetic and so fitting for the themes of this show. It's just like you just write itself. It's so damn good, right? And of course, facing off the three of them at the same time is the trigger in the gym where he's like, I'm going to do 3-on-1 saying, and they're like, oh, well, you can't beat us. And it's like, that's Akashi's triggers when he thinks he's going to lose. It's that trigger to unlock the door. He has to believe that only he can save the day. And he did that with Murasaki Bara. That was the trigger from the beginning of him like getting all fired up, is thinking that he has to do this to win. Otherwise he will lose, right? This would be our trump card. And he says, let me warn you, my trigger for this condition is abandoning you all and me losing hope in you. And and the way that Akashi, to give Akashi the benefit of the doubt, the way that he phrases that does make it sound like he doesn't want to lose hope in them and abandon them, but that'd be the only way they could win. Yes, I will give Akashi that. That is kind of a sad thing that but I'm also like, you are your own trigger. I was like, it's a superpower. I'm like, come on. Like I think that says that you don't care about anybody else. I don't know. I'm trying to give Akashi the benefit of the doubt, being like, I want to say he doesn't want to abandon his team. But he's like, if it comes down to it, I'll have to do that to win. But in the same vein, I'm kind of like, no, I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not. I want to try to feel bad for him, but it's just my empathy levels with Akashi right now are like way down here, where I'm like, but the way you treated Mayuzumi and the way you've treated everyone up until this point, why should I feel bad for you? That's kind of like where I'm at. I'm like, I want him to be defeated. I want Kagami to defeat Akashi. I don't feel bad for him yet. And maybe by the end of it, the next set, I will. Maybe I need to watch ahead so that I can, before people in the comments try to start convincing me otherwise. But yeah, I'm just like, Because yeah, he makes them all go ahead. And that's when Mabuchi seems to realize that, yeah, he's going to go in the zone. And he says here that, let me warn you, my trigger for entering this condition is the intent to achieve victory, not by using others, but by taking it for myself. Which I'm like, how is that any different than what you've done this entire series? Like, but I guess it is different. So he's saying not by, because this whole series, he's just done nothing but use others. And now he's saying like, well, it's just going the extreme of two very bad routes. He's like, it's going the two worst possible extremes. On the one hand, you have him just using people and not caring about the team, which is what he's been doing. And now we're going to the exact polar opposite end of the spectrum, where it's, I'm just fighting by myself, but I still don't care about the team. So it's just kind of like adjacent, I guess, more than on a spectrum. I want to fight with my strength alone when I lose hope in and abandon you. So, but it's like, has he had hope in them this whole time? Has he not? I guess he hasn't abandoned them, but has he had hope in them? Because he hasn't really been a captain that's inspired hope in his teammates or any sense of teamwork or camaraderie. So I'm kind of like, so you're basically being like you've always been, except now you're just not going to use anybody. You're just going to do it yourself. Okay. I guess that's where we're at. Sure. And he says that he's like basically a one-man show. And him taking the ball away from Kagami, though, and like the one move was actually really cool, though. I will give him that. That was a really cool move. And saying, I will demonstrate my superiority to everyone here. I'm like, well, you've been spouting this nonsense the last 8 episodes. So why are we surprised? Why are we surprised? And then what I hate, though, is that I love that Kagami's trying to keep up with him. And poor Hyuga's glasses like fall off from his face. It's not enough for you to sit. You need to kneel. And I was like, I hate it. And then witness my sublime form and realize that things are hopeless, that your defeat is absolute. I'm like, oh my God, make it stop. I'm like, okay, took from the ball from hoop to hoop. And Mayuzumi is like, even without us, he's stronger without us. A monster shakes our very existence. Does he really not need us? And I'm kind of wanting, I feel like that's the whole setup for this final 3 episodes is the concept of Akashi thinks he's going to fight alone, that he doesn't need any of them. And the funny thing is that the team, Rakuzen, kind of are left in this like hopeless state of like, well, we weren't needed to begin with. He can do this all by himself. I guess we're just going to sit here and be tools. Were we tools all along? I guess we were. And they kind of have just like a defeated mentality about it. But then with Seiren, even though they're like, well, Kagami, you're the only one that can go in the zone and all this, so I guess it's going to be up to you. Is there anything we can do to stop him? And that's when Kagami's like, I'll do it. And they're like, do you mean you'll do it all by yourself? And Kagami and Hyuga's like, well, then we're counting on you. And the first year's like, wait, what? And Izuki's like, a valid verdict. Yeah, nice. We can do that. But the thing of it is that Kyoshi is like getting the lemons. He's like, okay, I'm going to take this and relax. It's a different vibe, right? No one in Seiren is feeling defeated that Kagami's like, well, I'll take on Akashi. I can do this. Let me at him. Nobody in Seiren, they're all kind of like, okay, cool. But the difference is they're like, we're going to be supporting you and be behind you all the way, right? Like them all putting like their fists on Kagami, like fist bumping his chest, being like, hey, we're here to back you up. We know you got to take on Akashi. This has got to be your battle. You do it, man, but we're behind you all the way. We're here to support you. And Kagami's like, awesome, thank you. Kagami doesn't say, I don't need you anymore. I can face Akashi without you. Just sit on the bench and let me do this, which is essentially what Akashi's saying. So it's the polar opposite. Like Kagami's like, no, I've got my team behind me. I know I got this and I've got to face you because what choice do we have? Whereas Akashi is just like, I don't need any of you anymore. And the team's just kind of like, okay, well, we're just going to stand here like nobody's in. But there's not that support, right? And I don't feel bad for Akashi because it's a self-created situation. You've created this situation for yourself. So I'm like, whatevs. And Hyuga's like, you're our ace. We've got to trust you. That's good enough for us. We'll fight with you. And they all like give him their energy. They're like, we have faith in you. You're our ace. We'll let you handle this. And that whole thing with Kuroko, where Kuroko just being like, Kagami-kun, you got this, right? Yeah, and Kagami just having the sparkle in his eyes and everybody being like, we're pouring all of our hopes into you. Like, that's such a good moment. I love that. All of them being like, you got this and we're behind you all the way. Right? If you had told me at the start of this series that it was going to be Akashi versus Kagami, I don't think I would have believed you. I'd been like, huh, okay. All right. But I like it. I think it's a fitting... Kagami is very much the antithesis of Akashi. Kagami has from the beginning Yeah, that is so true. Like, it's easy to think of it as Akashi and Kuroko. Because on the one hand, yes, Akashi and Kuroko, it is their two styles of basketball. The idea of teamwork and individualism. Like, it's them back and forth. That's like the easy, but it's like, I feel like it's the Vince, like the Ed McMahon where he's like in the chair, like having the galaxy brain moment. That's like the genius level moment. But then the galaxy brain thing is thinking of from the beginning, Kagami has been like, had this talent, been this prodigy, but he's always been like, I want to win with others. I want to win with you, Kuroko. I want to be the best in Japan with you. I want to include you in this victory. And for Akashi, it's the polar opposite. He's like, I just want victory for myself. No one else matters. And so it's cool to see Kuroko and Kagami, who together have been the antithesis to Akashi from the start, that at this very last juncture of the game, they're the ones that are challenging Akashi. I want Kuroko to get in the zone. I want him to get in the zone with Kagami so bad. If we had like OTP dual zones in the last game, I would lose my shit. I'd be like, my birthday is tomorrow. Maybe I'll go ahead and watch it. Maybe I can't wait. I don't know. And then I'll have plenty of time to see all of your comments before we watch the movie. I might do it. I don't know. I might get to that point, but I just love that smile from Kagami. And I love Riko coming up to him being like, the fight will determine who wins and who loses. Simple as that. Like, win, Kagami. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all. It's, you know that Akashi is going to push Kagami to the brink. You know he is. You know he's going to push him to the brink and be like, why won't you just quit? You know, I want Kagami to push him back so hard. I want that Leo to push back on him so hard and just be like, come on, right? You have Sagittarius, Akashi firing arrows, and I want Lion Kagami, Tiger Kagami to dodge them all and go at him. Go for the jugular. Because, yeah, at this point, I want Akashi to lose. He needs to lose. He needs to come off his high horse for a bit and just be like, it's okay to lose. It's fine. I need that to happen. And honestly, the only thing I can think of happening is if Akashi gets so in his head in the zone and thinks he can do it all by himself, and then Seiren starts to catch up, and Akashi believes he can't rely on his team, so he tries to do it all by himself, and he can't. Like, that's the only way I can see them catching up, is Akashi is so in the zone, thinking he can do it himself, and his teammates aren't needed, that he'll end up screwing himself over. That's the only thing I can think of at this point of how they beat him. Akashi is like a self-defeating monster. That's like, he's his worst enemy. That's the only thing I can think of. But before we end this episode, I like the MEO. She's like, so, Almine, you know, about this, you said something about the zone and even deeper in the zone. Like, how does that work? And I love that shot of Kagami when he came after and had like the glowing eyes. He's like, how does that work exactly? What did you mean? Like, and I love that all eyes get on Almine, and he has this like, it's the best expression Almine's ever given, this grumpy look of like, I don't like everybody's attention being on me, and I don't want to talk about it. I love it, where he's just like, and Momoi's like, what's going on? He's like, it's a metaphor. Almine's like, I only want to get philosophical around Momoi, damn it. He's like, when you enter the zone, you open a massive door. And he creates this like lore. He's like, you know, you open a door, there's water, you just sink down the water, and then at the bottom of it, there's another door. And he's like, you know, but there's an even bigger door, and there's a gatekeeper, and it's like a shadow version of yourself, and it's like, you know, I've never been able to open past the shadow version, but if Kagami is going to beat Akashi, he's got to do it. It's so dorky. I love it. I love that he just scratches his head like I don't want to talk about it. He's like, it's like, he's like, I don't know what happens. It's just so cute. I love that. I mean, he's just so dorky about it. And Momoi's like, but if Kagami has any chance of winning, it's getting through the second door. And I feel like that's going to be the deciding factor. That's going to be the thing, right, that determines it all. I feel like I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's going to happen as we go forward with this last set. But yeah, I do want to talk about the end credits as well as the end cards. I want to talk about that fun stuff. So we'll talk about the end credits first. I really like the end credits. These are so cute. The first one is, it's Yosen, and they're all, it looks like they're at like a bunch of igloos, or it's something in the winter, and there's like snacks everywhere, which is, I'm assuming the only way they got Murasaki Bara to go is that they promised him free food. But I like that. I like that Himuro and they're all there with like the different, like they look like hot chocolate and tea and stuff. It's really cute. Maybe mochi. It looks like that's mochi. Maybe it's like New Year's, it's mochi. I like it. But yeah, I feel like that's the only way they got Murasaki Bara to go. They're like, well, there's going to be free food. And he's like, all right, I'm in. Like, it's really cute. I really like, we see Hyuuga again with his team, right? Every team has a light Yagami lookalike that looks like Miyagi, including Hyuuga's team. But I really like that, or is that Seijo? That's Seijo, isn't it? Yeah, right? That's Seijo's team. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, it's Seijo's team going after him. But I like Hyuuga. You can tell he's watching the game. For sure. He's totally, like, going to watch nationals. Maybe. Or he's walking away from them, so I don't know. But I want him to show up and watch nationals. I think that would be fun. My favorite, though, is the last one with all the coaches, right? All the coaches together. The referees are like, hey, coaches, you're not going to be mad at us for our calls, right? Like, what is this? Shirogane looks super badass and intimidating. He looks like Shirogane that coaches Rakuzen. He looks like the Kiyotane from Inashiro. He looks like the coach equivalent of that for Kuroko's basketball. Then you have the coach for, which team is that? The coach for Shutoku that's talking with him. Again, Kaijo's coach has the same eyebrows as Wakamatsu. If they are not father and son, they have to be like uncle and nephew. I'm calling nepotism. I'm calling it now. They have the same eyebrows. It's amazing. And then I like the idea that Toho's coach and Kagetora, they both were playing basketball at the same time because they're both like seem like contemporaries. And then Yosen's coach, she's like in the middle of all them, looking thoroughly aggravated by Kagetora. I'm like, Kagetora, we don't know what's happened to Riko's mom. Is Riko's mom in the picture or not? We don't know. Is Kagetora trying to hit on Yosen's coach? I feel like he is. And I feel like she's about to whack him with a bamboo stick. Why am I shipping Kagetora and Yosen's coach? Why am I shipping them? Why am I hoping he's friends with them? What? I'm just kind of floored by all of this. Interesting. I need to know more. I need to know more coach backstory. I need to know more lore. Tell me more things. And then we have the 3 end cards, which are great. The first end card is plain, which is fitting because it's Kuroko and Mayuzumi. It's plain and fitting, but I like it. It's very like just like there. I like though if you watch, Mayuzumi is trying to cast a shadow over Kuroko, but it's not completely enveloping him. Nice. I like it. I like it. The second one is Izuki and Koganei, which is so fitting because I feel like episode 21 was their episode. Like the two of them, I feel like it was just perfect for the two of them. I love that. I love that end card for them. It's so good. It's beautiful. I freaking love it. And then, yes, the last one, I'm sorry. What is this manic pixie dream girl magic of Riko with her OT3 of Teppei and Hyuuga? What? I'm like, yes, please. And it almost looks like Hyuuga is holding Riko's hand maybe in that one, in that shot there. We can't see it because of her hair, but yeah. You got Teppei the X alongside Hyuuga and Riko together. I'm just saying. OT3, y'all. These end cards, they're so shippy. I freaking love it. But so yeah, next week is the last 3 episodes, and then the OVA, which is going to be 25.5. For some reason, Crunchyroll has it before the season finale. Crunchyroll, why? But I'll make sure to watch it last after episode 25. But I can't believe we're at the end of the regular season of the series next week. but then we have a lot more still yet to go, including the manga and the movie. So what the fudge, y'all, and the bloopers and everything. So I don't know, y'all, but I'm freaking excited. So yeah. What do we do, y'all? What do we do, y'all? What do we do? So, in any case, I am excited. I hope you all are too. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, but I'm not gonna waste any more time. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I will be back next week with episodes 23, 24, 25, and the OVA for Kuroko's basketball. Bye!